T20 goal scorer. There they go right off the draw, and they do tie it. Chris Porter makes it 1-1. Lays it off to Granlund. Now Spurgeon off the crossbar. Rebound score. Charlie Coyle and the Wild lead it 2-1. To Ward. Now Donskoy scores. On the rush. Donskoy. Couture. Donskoy missed the open net. And they score. Joel Ward. And the Sharks take the lead. Chance here. And a shot saved by Jones. Rebound. They score. Jared Stoll ties the game. Quick shot. They score. The big Pavelski.
Coyle fires, save to make, rebound, Coyle scores! Get the goaltender off, and that's exactly what they do. Dubnyk caught out of the net, and they score! Vermette fired it toward the net. A different move. Here's Duclair. Scores. This year. Off the post. He's had 2 shootout attempts. He's hit the post twice. And Arizona wins this game in a shootout.
Well, that sucks. That ping sound there is the losing effort for the Minnesota Wild on Tuesday night, last night in the shootout against the Arizona Coyotes. Before that, you heard some lowlights mixed in with a little bit of highlights from the game against the San Jose Sharks in a matinee on Saturday. Another losing effort for the Minnesota Wild, who can't seem to win. The last time they won against Los Angeles. Had all these highlights ready to go for the next episode of the podcast, and then they go ahead and lose 2 straight going into the break against San Jose and Arizona. Welcome to the Land of 10,000 Losses podcast. This is episode 6 here, recording on live here on January 27th. Hopefully we got the mic situation all figured out. Justin and Travis both with me today. Yep. We got lots to talk about. Somebody calling the Twin Cities in Minnesota a small market, and there's a big issue with that, and that's kind of been a big debate. We'll start with the Wild, then we'll get into the Twins. We know we got lots to talk about the Twins and other stuff in baseball today, but as mentioned, the Minnesota Wild, couple of game losers in a row heading into the All-Star break. Not a good finish to the first half.
No, it's been rough. It's been absolutely awful, and that game against Arizona was just kind of symbolized what our whole first, part of this. Well, not the whole first half, but kind of the latest stretch has been. And Dubnyk kind of wide left it in his own way, kind of Blair Walshed it. And that was absolutely terrible. I mean, you go under power play with a minute 24 left or around that time. You think, all right, we got the upper hand. Even if they pull a goaltender, it'll be even 5-on-5. So we're good. We'll win this game. We'll take that 1-0 win. We'll go, take our 2 points. It'll be good. Nope. Not Minnesota sports lately. We have to make it interesting. And then, when the shootout started, we didn't score in overtime. They didn't score in overtime. And obviously, we didn't even have any 3-on-3 in that overtime, which is kind of interesting. When it got to that shootout and Preezy kind of bobbled the puck and then the last shot, Coyle ringed it off the post like Zachy mentioned. And, yeah, it's just been, like I said, a summary of how these, last stretches of games have shaped out. The schedule's only getting tougher. It's going to be really, really rough.
Yeah, it's gotten crazy now.
Yeah.
The thing is, at the end of that Arizona game, it was fun because you could kind of just laugh about it almost, where it was like, it felt like the perfect way to end the first half of the season before the All-Star break.
Yeah.
Where you had this, epic, you don't want to say collapse because they're only up 1-0, but it was just like an epic error to lead to them losing a big point against the Western Conference foe. And it just kind of describes the first season, or the first half of the season in a nutshell, for a bad cliche about it. It's just this, you want your team to win, you want them to be productive and do great things, and, maybe get a first round home game for once, or first round home advantage for once, but when they play like that, you can kind of understand why they're not getting there. I mean, they just make too many mental errors.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, they go into the All-Star break. I think today is the unofficial or the official last day of the first half. I mean, there's a couple of games tonight. The Wild obviously aren't playing tonight, as their last game was last night. But it's not an easy stretch coming out of the break by any means. I mean, maybe luckily you only do have Devin Dubnyk going to the All-Star break. That way you can get a couple of guys who maybe a little bit banged up, or get a couple of guys kind of back healthy. But kicking off February, that starts kind of with a swing in New York. They play the Islanders and Rangers on Tuesday and Thursday of next week. And then they've got games against other Eastern Conference teams like Washington, Boston, Washington twice. So it's not going to get easy. And then they play some of the upper echelon in the Western Conference, both looking up right now at a couple of central opponents, St. Louis and Dallas. They play both of those teams to open up the break as well. So it's not going to get easy, and it might get ugly.
No, it's going to get rough. And we talked about a couple times that in this conference, you can't let that whole big game slip up happen like you did last season, that whole stretch where you just played awful. You can't let that happen again in this division, this conference. And I talked about it on Twitter a little bit the night of the Arizona game. And it seems like I know we kind of talked about Mike Yeo was going to lose his job, whatever. I feel like it's kind of like a Stanley Cup appearance or bust type year.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't at least make the Stanley Cup, and I tweeted this too, and people were like, "Really? I mean, you think you should get fired if we don't make the Stanley Cup?" Like, this is the expectations are high in Minnesota right now. 3 straight playoff appearances. We haven't really done much in the playoffs. Like, it's about time. Parisi's only getting older. Suter's only getting older. Some of these guys, Poundville, awful, Vanek, whatever, only getting older. So yeah, I don't think it's crazy to say that it's at the very least a Stanley Cup appearance or a bust. And if we don't even make the playoffs, if we're one and done, don't even make it, Mike Yeo's for sure gone. This is just turned into another train wreck type situation at this point in the season for the Wild.
Yeah, I think if they make a move before the deadline, and I don't know what kind of move you would make, because you don't really know what kind of team you have right now. I think, you kind of hope that coming out of the break, maybe they'll just jump back and play like they did in the beginning of the season. People forget that I think that at a time they had the most points through December, I think, of any time in franchise history, and we would consider them like a struggling team. It seemed like they were struggling. But I don't know what kind of move you make if you do make one. And, maybe on the outside looking in, maybe if Mike Yeo gets this team to the playoffs and they win a round 1 matchup and get to round 2 and maybe play tough in round 2, maybe he keeps his job. But at this point, halfway through the season, I think that I agree where it's you have to either make it to the Stanley Cup or win the Stanley Cup or you're gone. And I think that I at this point, I mean, I don't know about you guys. I certainly don't see this team as a team that's going to wind up in the Stanley Cup. There's just too many good teams in the Western Conference that they're looking up at that they'd have to play on the road against. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with this team right now? It's kind of all in shambles. You would have hoped, a big win against the Kings is nice. You would have hoped you would have gotten that win against San Jose, and then obviously last night should have been kind of a hand-me-down. But who knows? Woe is Minnesota sports.
But let's revisit that Kings game for a second, because this is I'm going to express some frustration, and this is going to relate back to a lot of what's going on with the Twins also in my mind. But this team was on a 5-game skid before that.
Talking about the Wild?
Yeah.
The last win prior to the Kings game came against Dallas. So,
but they were like on a 5-game skid. They beat LA, and then all of a sudden the talk around town stops. Like, people are like, okay, they're back. And it's like, no, guys, this is one friggin' win. Like, why are we... People just laid off them, and they've lost 2 in a row, and the same problems that have happened. They came out for 1 game, scored some goals, and I remember reading an article the next day saying, the Wild scoring is back, and stuff like that. Like, it was 1 friggin' game. Don't stop letting these people off so darn easy. I mean, there was a new trade rumor that popped up today that I hadn't heard of before, but and it's got a little steam with it. But still, like, it's people, please
Well,
Step
what is
up
it?
your expectations.
Yeah,
It
would
was
share with the class.
You can't just drop some knowledge. And
it
not,
was Louis Erickson. It was for
Okay.
Louis Erickson. And I
I've seen
hate
a little
it.
bit
I
of
hate
that.
it.
I've
hate
seen a
it.
little bit of that, and it's because he's
Yeah,
a wing,
he's another
right?
old guy too.
And
Yeah,
he's a winger,
wing.
so it's like you're not addressing the obvious
Well,
need
and
that
it's
you
a
have at
contract
center.
year for him too. Like so,
Yeah.
we don't have the $5 or $6 million to pay him next year anyway. So it does nothing for me. Dallas has been better off without him. Boston hasn't been good with him. So why would it change things when he comes here with us? Like,
Yeah,
I
I mean-
don't get it.
When you're talking about money, I mean, look at like Vanek's contract. You know, he really wanted that 3-year deal. We wanted to give him 2 originally. He ended up giving him that 3 years. Well, you know, we're gonna have to pay him for that 3rd year now. It's like if only we could have that 2-year contract with him, because obviously we let him walk. I mean, look at him and Pominville's 5 goals. I mean, they're doing nothing. These two are doing absolutely nothing. And Pominville is still on the first line and the first line power play. How I mean, that's the stuff that makes me scratch my head about Mike Yeo. I know he's getting a lot of heat for this whole Wild situation, which everybody in the organization should. It's everybody's fault. But the fact
But
that
no,
you
I
still
get
have
you. I
Pominville
get
in
you.
your first line
Well, not
and your
only
first line
that,
power play?
but he's got more ice time than Niederreiter. And
Right.
Niederreiter's got more points in less ice time. They both play the same position. Put Nino up there. Oh, hey, are you having problems with Granlund, who's played the disappearing act the last few games? Switch him out for someone else. Stop imagining that these guys are all some irreplaceable players and they're going
Right.
to hurt someone's feelings. And people in the Wild fandom need to understand also that out of all of our D-men, Matt Dumba, like the idea of trading Matt Dumba is not bad. People have this love of Matt Dumba. Matt Dumba is a defensive risk out there. You get okay scoring out of Scandella. He's got more points. He's played in less games. But Dumba is a -6 in the season. He's not getting as much ice time as a player like Scandella, who's getting 20 minutes, who's a +10. I mean, I don't know. I don't get people's like obsessive love of Dumba. It confuses me. Like I would trade Dumba. It's no one's being held accountable. I mean, what players are even there to push you if you're having a bad day? Jarrett Stoll, Curtis Gabriel, and no one, Kiranen. No one's seen that kid. He was supposed to be some big signing. When Jordan Schrader is the guy off the next guy up kind of thing, you're in trouble. The only line that's even looked somewhat fun lately has been actually that fourth line with Haula, Stoll, and Porter.
Yeah.
They've had a lot of energy. It's been kind of fun to watch them, but everyone else is
And
just aimless.
And to kind of go back on the whole Dumba point, I think that the reason why a lot of people like a guy like Matt Dumba is, because he's got the good shot. Like, he's got a hard shot. Big deal. He misses the net and he can't score.
And your power play is still ranked like 27th or 28th in the league. If he was that valuable on the power play like people say he is, your power play wouldn't be that terrible.
And it's pretty telling, too, when you look at a first-line power play and Dumba's not on it, but a guy like Pominville is. I mean, that's pretty telling to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, even a guy like having like Suter, who has no shot really. I mean, honestly, I'm a big Suter guy, but he has really no shot at all. He's not a scoring threat whatsoever. I know he's kind of a nice back end of the power play just in case the puck gets out of the zone or anything like that. But if Dumba's shot can't make it over, somebody like Suter, I just think the one quality that Justin, you talked about it, the one quality that you want with Dumba is his goal scoring. Well, he's not scoring goals, so he's playing bad defense and. Well, he's not doing anything offensively, so what's the point? Hell are we having him for? Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I again, like it's frustrating because this team can produce, and like you see the names have all been there for a long time. Like they've been, consistent names with the Vanek and Koivu and Coyle, or I shouldn't say Coyle, with like Parise. Yeah.
Richard Park.
Oh my goodness. But I mean, like let's.
I take Richard Park right now on this team. Are you kidding me?
No kidding.
Goodness.
I can't wait to see him in the alumni game.
Though, like, let's look at the fact that, all right, so when you signed Thomas Vanek and Jason Pominville, what did you sign them to do? You signed them to score goals. And Vanek, to his credit, is having like an okay year. I mean, he's got 14 goals and 15 assists. That's okay. That's not bad. That's a pace for like 60 goals. Oh, actually not. Yeah, like a 60-goal season almost. But he's got 97 shots. You know what other players have shots around that same total? I mean, Spurgeon's got 73. Dumba's got 88. Just things like that. Like, what? Why do you have anywhere near the same amount of shots as these guys? Why aren't Suter's got 125? Why is Suter shooting more than Thomas Vanek right now? I don't get it. Like,
Well, I think a lot of that does come on the power play because Suter does throw a lot of those just lame ducks at the net, and though it doesn't really benefit much, it does count statistically as a shot. And Vanek doesn't see a ton of time on the power play until they get to that last, 30, 45 seconds where, they throw that second line out there and getting ready because they just kind of surrendered their chance to score the power play goal.
Okay, Zucker. Zucker plays the same position as Vanek. They're both left wings, and Zucker gets less ice time than Vanek. And Vanek has taken 97 shots on goal this year, and Zucker's at 122.
Well, the biggest criticism, too, of Vanek is, and he's doing it again this year, he doesn't shoot. It's like he's scared to shoot the puck, and I don't know why. He's like, it's almost like he's a pass-first kind of guy now. It's like, no. We signed you to shoot the fucking damn puck. Sorry. I almost got the full one F-bomb. No, but we signed you to
I'm going to have to put the big E on the iTunes now.
Yeah. I said fuck. Fuzz not forward. No, we signed you to shoot the puck, and you're not even shooting the puck. You're passing the puck first. It's like, and that's kind of the same thing with Palmville. I think Zucker should get more ice time for sure. Not like Zucker's been, a world beater right now, but
pair his ass with Parisi. I mean,
technically
they're two of the same players,
right?
Technically, they both played left wing, and I don't know if you put him up there, Pominville can't play third line, and that's where Pominville's the risk now. Pominville and Vanek is that if they're not producing, and you've got young guys like even Fontaine, Fontaine can play a good game out there, but Zucker and Niederreiter are pushing Vanek and Pominville for time.
Yeah,
you can put Zucker and Niederreiter on the third line. You can't put those two on the third line. You just can't.
The single biggest issue, in my opinion, with this team is inconsistency. You've got guys. I mean, you've mentioned a couple of names: Nino Niederreiter, Jason Zucker, even a guy like Fontaine, Pominville, Vanek. They're all so inconsistent because at times during the season, these guys look like, holy hell, these guys can play. And it's like now you're kind of running out of spots. You're like, okay, well now who has to play the second line? Who's got to go play the third line? But then it's times where it's like, who can we get to come play the second line because nobody can. It's just, Coyle I think is kind of back on that track now. He's kind of on the upslide of that little roller coaster. He's had a couple of big games the last couple of games. He's got a couple of goals. I think he scored a goal in each of the last 3 games that they've played or something like that. So, you hope that you can get more consistency out of a lot of these guys, not only just the vets like Pominville and Vanek, but some of the younger guys like Coyle, Granlund, Niederreiter, Zucker. You just need a little bit more, and maybe they take a little bit more of the they shoulder a little bit more of the responsibility and start kind of playing up to the potential that not only us 3, but I think all Minnesota fans want them to be. Because that's the way that they're going to win games. They're not going to win games because they're not going to win many 2-1 games, and that at least we shouldn't settle for that. We shouldn't want that. We should want these young guys to start finally producing and maybe win a couple of these games where you score 4 goals in a game, 5 goals in a game because you're getting scoring from all 4 lines rather than just Zach Parise.
Yeah,
Coyle's the only young guy right now that's having a pretty good season. It seems like,
but no one's having that breakout season yet.
No,
you saw. If you go back and look at the stats of Parise and Vanek and Pominville, which is kind of what we're hoping some of these guys turn into. A lot of times, those guys were producing 30 goals already in their first or second season in the NHL. So you don't want to put that kind of pressure on a player because that can be unfair saying, hey, go score 30 goals. But that's what we need though. We need someone at this pace. There's not a single 30 goal scorer on this team. And that puts us back to the old Jacques Lemaire days where we're just hoping for grinding out the 2-1 win. And I know that's not what we want, but that's what this team is showing us is the only way they can win. I don't know. I have a tough time believing this team's just going to all of a sudden magically turn it around back to what they were doing at the beginning of the season. Because realistically, since then, they haven't done much.
No, I agree. They haven't done much offensively.
If it wasn't for their nice start to the year in their first month and a half, they'd be in a lot of trouble right now.
Yeah.
Well, just kind of looking around on the NHL trade rumors and stuff like that, they've the projected cap space for the Wild going into this trade deadline is $813,000.
Yeah, there's just
You're not going to make many moves like that. Their biggest need is obviously scoring.
They're gonna have to move Brodin probably.
And that's what they say. They say unless Fletcher's willing to move a young player like Jonas Brodin to add a significant score, the Wild are going to have to go bargain for some maybe third or fourth line help that can maybe provide a little bit of a spark.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they could find a way to get Granlund in a package, I think they'd be, doing pretty well for themselves. If you positioned Granlund with one of the top D guys or the young D guys, you could probably get a pretty good.
I would literally trade Pominville in his contract for nothing. like here we go, just have him.
Well, the problem also is that sounds like that's fun, but all those guys have no trade clauses, all of them.
Yeah, right.
Which is just, it's starting to really hit you. It's kind of like, it's got to be like what the Philadelphia Eagles felt like a few years ago after giving all those huge contracts out to like Nnamdi Asomugha and players like that. Yeah. It's like, oh man, we have nothing. If we're not winning, we're in a lot of trouble.
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, kind of just trying to pull up the standings here and look. It's like they're still in the thick of things, kind of where they sit now as far as some of the wild card goes and some of the division and stuff like that goes. I mean, currently they still hold the number one wild card spot, but they're tied right now with Colorado. And right behind them is Nashville at 54 points, just 1 point behind. And then Anaheim at 51, also Vancouver at 51. So there's not a lot of breathing room there. And it's you're getting to the thick of the schedule, like we mentioned, a couple of games against some really big opponents that you're going to have to beat. I mean, you're going to have to go play the Islanders and the Rangers, both on the road, both teams who are in the playoffs currently where they sit. You're also going to have to play Boston, who's a playoff team, Washington, who leads the entire world in hockey right now. I mean, there's a lot of tough games, and that's just with the Eastern Conference teams. Then you got to come play, as mentioned, the upper echelon of the Western Conference, Dallas, St. Louis. You got a game against Chicago, obviously, the outdoor game. So unless they turn things around quickly and start winning some games, it's going to be a long month of February.
Do you want to hear something kind of crazy? Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that these there's a website, that same website that I was showing Travis earlier called SpotTrack.com is a pretty awesome website. There's a cool thing where you can go like buy out the contract of a player and it'll show you what you owe that player.
Yeah.
So if you bought out Jason Pominville at the end of this year because of the way his contract works, you'd still owe him 2/3 of the remaining salary. So you'd actually still owe him $13 million with a base salary of $1.6 million for the next 8 years.
Sounds to me like a Mark Parrish situation.
Yeah, that's exactly what it'd be. You'd take a $1.6 million cap hit for the next 8 years.
Wow.
Incredible.
Yeah, that's rough. Well, like I was going to say, too, we're right now in the wild card spot, and it's disappointing because we thought after the run we made last year that, could next year be the, we're finally a top 3 seed, hopefully number 1, number 2, who knows? Like top 3, first round, home playoff, home field, home ice advantage, I have to say. But no, it's like we're another wild card seed. We're another team that's just barely scraping by. We're another team that it's another year where we might make the playoffs. Who knows? We shouldn't have to. It just feels like with this team, we shouldn't have to be like, are we going to make the playoffs? Maybe, hopefully. It should be, okay, we're for sure making the playoffs. What seed are we going to be?
And how deep are we going to go?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Who knows what's going to happen? We'll see. The Wild currently right now on break for the All-Star game. I believe the festivities are this weekend where they play a couple of different games. I'm not really sure how the whole schedule works with that.
No idea.
Now that there's a couple of different things. It looks like the Metropolitan versus the Atlantic divisions play Sunday at 5 o'clock.
It's 3v3 now, isn't it?
Pacific plays the Central at 6 o'clock, and then the All-Stars from the East versus All-Stars from the West at 7, I think it says, or I have no idea what. I probably should have looked into that a little bit more of kind of what's going to happen. But yeah, currently it's 3v3. The Central Division plays the Pacific Division, and I bet it's a tournament thing. Okay, so the winner from each of those will probably play the other at the last game. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's kind of like a bracket thing there. So we play the Central to possibly go to, who knows, Devin Dubnyk, and he's the only All-Star for the Wild right now. Coming out of the break, as mentioned, next Tuesday, they travel to New York and play the Islanders on Tuesday the 2nd, and then follow that up right away with a road game against the Rangers on the 4th, and then that Saturday they play on the road against St. Louis. So it's not an easy start to the second half, but hopefully if you can get a couple of wins right out of the gate, kind of prove that you're right back in the thick of things. You got a couple of winnable games in the middle part of the month, and then towards the end of the month you also have a couple of winnable games as well. So who knows what's going to happen with this team. Hopefully you'd like to think they can just flip a switch and turn it around, but in all reality it's kind of a who truly knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to be a grind, especially in this conference with the schedule we have upcoming. So we'll see. I mean, they can still get in. I mean, they still have a playoff spot right now. It's just the fact that we have to squeak in again, another year where we have to barely get by, like we just talked about in the last couple minutes here, that you shouldn't have to worry about if we're going to make it or not. It should be let's see how far we're going to make it, like Zach said. And it's just another year about worrying about, hey, are we going to get in?
So let me ask you guys a question. In your opinions, we'll move on here from the Wild talk and the Wild chatter, and because there's been a story that came up the last couple of days. It's kind of been a hot topic, dating back to even 2009 and even way before that. I've got a little snippet here from Colin Cowherd, about 3 minutes long, that we'll get to here in a couple of minutes as well. Whatever you think of Colin Cowherd, you can love him, you hate him. He's such a polarizing guy, but I think I personally agree with what he says, and we'll talk about it here too. But recently, an article came out from the Baseball Prospectus website, talking about Minnesota being a small market and kind of using that con. And I mean, I think I can speak for both of you. There's no way in hell that Minneapolis is a small town market.
No, not at all. We're mid-tier. Like the article says, too, the article nailed it. We're like a Detroit. We're effectively like the same size market as Detroit.
Yeah.
And look at how much money Detroit's spending. And
And
people
looking
say,
at-
well, spending doesn't get you right into the playoffs. Well, Detroit has been, going, it's just more playoff success than we've had in the past, how many years? 10 years?
No, I think the bigger issue though is that you get clowns out there who say, look at the Seattle, or look at St. Louis, look at Kansas City, look at Toronto, and people or not Toronto, but look at San Francisco. The issue with those arguments is that those teams, look at their payrolls.
Right.
It's San Francisco's 158 right now. St. Louis is 136. Kansas City's 130. What does that tell you for Twins fans? It's telling you, Seattle is 135 right now. Those are all markets that we are as big or bigger than, and these clubs are going to the playoffs, and we're not spending, we're spending $30 to $45 million less than these guys, $60 million in case of the Giants.
Yeah.
That says that you're not even trying anymore, that you're just trying to get by through the skin of your teeth, and that people will come out just based to watch baseball. That's stupid. It's dumb.
Yeah.
Well, I love what you brought up with the
advantage of.
Royals. No, you're right, and you're 100% right with the Royals too. Because I love when these baseball snobs in the Twin Cities who shall remain nameless. I don't want to bring that up, but they piss me off to no end because they always talk about, oh, look at the Royals. I mean, they do it with young talent and stuff like that. Yeah, but they also supplement it with key free agents.
And you know
They're
how
also
long they
outspending
suck,
on
too?
spice. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they go and they sign guys like Cueto a couple years ago. They spend the money to better their team. Edison Valquez. I mean, it's just a head scratcher how people can sit back and say, we're kind of like the Royals. I mean, the Royals didn't need to do that. The Royals is, young talent. The Royals also had key free agents, and I can't stress that enough.
Yeah, the article here that we're talking about and we're referring to is an article that came out a couple of days ago from the website baseballprospectus.com. Author's Jack Moore. I think he primarily is a Brewers guy. I think he's got Milwaukee roots. He kind of was going through. He's saying there's no need to argue Milwaukee is a small town market because Milwaukee truly is probably a small town market. And he goes Milwaukee. He quoted Nielsen and their television rankings and their ratings and all that kind of stuff. And Milwaukee's market has 882,000 television homes in their market. Only Cincinnati is a smaller major league market than Milwaukee. Milwaukee ranks 35th. Cincinnati ranks 36th, and then Kansas City also 33rd, right above them. They're the only three major league franchises outside the top 30 in media markets. And then he has a couple of different things in there where you could consider a couple other places. You could get away with adding to places like San Diego, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and or St. Louis as a smaller media market. Minneapolis-St. Paul, for people who don't know, is the 15th largest media market in the country. They've got like 1.7 million television homes. It's one of 6 media markets between 1.6 and 1.9 million television homes, including Tampa, St. Pete, Phoenix, Detroit, Seattle, and Miami, Fort Lauderdale. You know, he says in the article, the Twins have been labeled really a small market team since the 1980s, even though they were on the heels of 2 World Series. And at the time, they paid Gary Gaetti $2.4 million salary in 1989. He was the highest paid player of any player in the major leagues.
That's crazy.
Gary Gaetti in 1989. Wow. You know, he went through there. It's a great article if you go out and read that on Baseball Prospectus website. He went out and asked and said that, you know, Minneapolis compared to New York and Los Angeles and Chicago, of course they're a small market, but the difference between Boston and Minneapolis as far as the TV markets goes is less than the difference between Minneapolis and Milwaukee. So Minneapolis truly is closer to Boston as a market size than they are to Milwaukee. He asked Detroit if they consider them a small market. 91% of his Twitter followers said no, but he considers them roughly the same size, if not Minneapolis, maybe a little bit bigger. Again, though, it's a great article to go read. It's talking about the con really that the poll ads have put on about being a small market, and now they kind of rope the state into, you know, paying more money for the stadium and threatening to contract from Minnesota and head somewhere else. And but as mentioned, this has been a topic for a long time. Right now, we'll go ahead and listen to a couple of minutes sound clip from Colin Cowherd. He had this on his radio show when he was still with ESPN. This is the day after the Twins won Game 163 against Detroit in 2009, I believe it was. This is the day after on his morning show talking about Minneapolis and the Twin Cities being a small market.
You know, in baseball, because there's no salary cap, they always have these labels. That's a big market team. That is a small market team. Can we stop calling Minnesota and the Twins a small market team? I got an email this morning from somebody named Trey. Once again, the herd is right, he says sarcastically. Small market teams can't win. Minnesota's won their division 5 out of the last 8 years. Well, first of all, it's a mediocre division to begin with. If it was college football, it's the ACC. So, you know, winning that division 5 out of 8 years, how have you done after you won it? Nothing. You need to get out more if you think Minneapolis is a small town. Minnesota is highly educated, has 4 pro sports, is a major corporate headquarters. 33 of the top 1,000 publicly traded companies in America are in Minneapolis. The personal incomes, 10th highest in the country. World-class airport, world-class mall. It's a airline hub. It's big money, smart people, corporate hub. It's affluent, progressive, cultured, educated. I'd live there tomorrow if it didn't snow in June. It's a great American city, and it's not a small market. Listen, baseball's got 3 food groups. You got 4 teams in the sort of mostly unlimited resources category. New York, Chicago, Boston, L.A. That's the virtually unlimited resources. Then you have the second food group, which is Minnesota, Seattle, Philly, Atlanta, Detroit, Houston, Toronto. Then you have the third group, which is limited resources. Those are Baltimore, Miami, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Oakland, D.C., Arizona, San Diego, Milwaukee, Tampa, Cleveland. Don't forget who's paying. It's not the fans. It's the corporations. And the Twins have been popular forever. They've been successful for over a decade. They've got good resources. They have smart people. It's okay. So don't lump the Twins in with Kansas City. Okay, the Twins are a well-run, large-cap fund on Wall Street. Maybe not Microsoft, but certainly not Larry's Computer Shack. They got a super rich owner, an incredibly loyal fan base. They're efficiently run. It's a corporate headquarters. People make real money in Minneapolis. It's highly educated. Stop making them Kansas City. Just to clarify, I've never considered Minneapolis small market. You know, we never talk about market size in the NFL or even in the NBA, but in baseball, if you can't keep up with the Yankees' revenue, you're a small market. Well, you know, the Yankees play by a different standard. Their cable deal for the YES network is, it's hundreds of millions of dollars. Nobody else has that.
So there's Colin Cowherd there talking about the Minnesota Twins and stop calling them a small market team and stop roping them in with Kansas City in particular, because right around the time that's Kansas City was kind of getting ready to go on the upslide. The Twins had just won game 163. He went on to talk about how they stood no chance against the Yankees because they didn't have the pitching to face them in the playoffs, which they didn't stand a chance against the Yankees that year. But there's a lot of telling things that he talked about, and he's right on a lot of cases. He talks about how Minneapolis and St. Paul has 30 of the top 1,000 biggest publicly traded companies here, including places like Best Buy, 3M, Target, many things. World-class mall, world-class airport. It's just there's so much here. And then he goes on and talks a little bit, as you heard there, talks about how they've got a filthy rich owner who, just isn't wanting to spend a ton of the money, and the Twins have been good for a long time, and they've been relevant for a long time. And I like the one fact, or the one little snippet he put in there too. He was like, hell, I'd move to Minneapolis tomorrow if it didn't snow in June, and obviously that's kind of the joke or whatever. But no, I mean, say what you will about a guy like Colin Cowherd, but I heard that interview a couple of years ago, and that there once again was from 2009, and it's a pretty good thing to listen to if you listen to the full segment there. That's only just a couple of snippets from it, but no, he's kind of in the same boat. One thing he does say that I kind of want to get you guys' take on too, maybe a little bit, and it doesn't have to be long, but he talks about how nobody ever talks about market size in the NFL. Nobody ever talks about market size in the NBA even. He says in baseball, if you can't compete with the Yankees, the Dodgers as far as cap goes, you're a small market. And I think that's a pretty accurate depiction of how baseball works. Is if you can't keep up with the Yankees in payroll, you're a small market. And that's what a lot of people view, but it's not always the truth.
Well, I think with the difference between like an NFL and baseball, I think NFL is you build so much through the draft, where in baseball there's a lot of teams that build a lot through free agency, not even much so through the draft. They actually, they'll trade for guys, they'll sign guys. Where in the NFL, it's pretty rare to see a huge signing or a huge trade. In baseball, it's nothing. It happens all the time. And I love how, because I know Colin brought up the Yankees, and so did you. I love how when we were kids and people were like, I hate the Yankees. All they do is buy their championships. Yeah. So? So what? They win championships. Who cares?
Now that
doesn't matter how you win them.
Yeah, now that you're older, it's like, hell, I wish we would buy our championships too.
Exactly. And it's funny how
how much?
Colin talked about Howard, don't limp us with Kansas City because, the small market thing. And he said Kansas City's a small market. Well, Kansas City's outspending us by how many millions of dollars? And
40.
We're a much bigger market. Yeah, exactly. And I 100% agree with Colin Cowherd. And I just and it's funny how I talked to Zach. I heard Aaron Gleeman talk about it today. Aaron Gleeman, right, for Hardball Talk on NBCSports.com. It's crazy that outsiders are recognizing it way more than the people here, the baseball writers here, the baseball people here.
Yeah,
it's like they don't recognize it, but the outsiders are like, "How are you not recognizing this?
No,
How are
here's
you not
the difference.
Seeing this?"
Here's and this is the difference and the frustration is if you would like to compare us to a Kansas City or a St. Louis, you have to take a step back and realize that Kansas City is paying has a payroll of $129 million for next year, right? So $30 million more than we have, and it's kind of scary because we're the number 17 and Kansas City's number 12. So $30 million separates 17 from 12. So if you even want to be competitive, not even in top 10, top 10 is spending over 135, but all the way to number 15, teams are spending. Or actually 116, right in front of us, the Baltimore Orioles are spending $17 million more a year than we are. But it comes down to where are you spending your money also. If you look at the Kansas City payroll, not a single player on that payroll is making more than $12 million a year. Or you go to St. Louis, only one player on that entire team is making more two players on that team are making more than that, and that's Matt Holliday and Adam Wainwright. And deservedly so, both are top spots in the game for where they are, and both at the end of long deals. But then you kick over to who's someone else they always compare us to? San Francisco, isn't that another one they always compare us to?
Probably.
Look at San Francisco, and you know where all their money's tied up in? Big time catcher and big time pitchers. That's where it all is. They don't waste their time spending money on the maybe number 2 or 3 guys like we have. They're out there. They're signing Jake Peavy, Johnny Cueto, Matt Cain, Madison Bumgarner. I mean, they're paying the same amount for Jake Peavy, or we're paying more for what's-his-face than they are for Jake Peavy.
What's-his-face helps a lot.
Sorry, for...
Ty Malone?
No. I was saying for Irvin Santana and Ricky Nolasco. So it's... I don't know. I think a lot of it, too, is that we all have to take a step back to say it's not on us as fans, but we've caused a lot of this because we pretty much forced them to sign Joe Mauer, and look what Mauer's become since then. And so if I was them, would I be a little worried about giving any other big players big contracts? Because the last two that I've given big contracts to have kind of backfired on us.
Yeah, but I think with the whole...
You can't think that way, though.
With the whole Joe Mauer situation, though, before that... that's kind of an unfair thing, I think, because nobody first of all, because he signed his deal coming off of an MVP season. Nobody expected him to get hurt. Nobody expected him to have to move from behind the plate to first base. And I think I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago too, or a couple of episodes ago. You don't want to try and find excuses for it, but I think in all reality, for anybody who's had to change a position, as drastic as that was, I mean, I think more of his offseason training went into, hey, I got to learn how to play first base. I mean, I've played here and there, but I've got to learn how to consistently play first base because I'm no longer a catcher. And I think that this season coming in, with this offseason going into the season, I think, I can't remember who it was, and I'll have to try and find it because I don't want to not quote them for it, but they talked to Joe Mauer, and Joe Mauer said that this is the healthiest and the strongest that he's felt since he's been a professional baseball player. And I think that's, I mean, okay, you take that with a grain of salt, whatever, but if it's true and if Mauer really is, a lot stronger and a lot healthier and he's feeling good, maybe there's room for some optimism there then going into this season, and maybe he'll start getting some fans to realize that maybe he's worth some of the money that he's getting paid.
All right,
well,
but
not to be huge.
Sorry, go for it.
Oh yeah, I'll just before you cut out, not to be a huge pessimist, but I'll believe it when I see it with Joe Mauer. I've heard this before too. It just, and the thing is too, when you talked about, there's been some excuses thrown around and stuff like that, and I see on Twitter, and I've talked about it on Twitter before with people, and they're like, yeah, but his concussions. You're right. That's a huge. I'm not dismissing that. That's a huge factor. But regardless of what it is, regardless of what you say, what the excuse is, it still doesn't change the fact he's not producing. Facts are facts. I know. I mean, it sucks why he's not producing. His injuries, his position, it's stuff like that. But it still doesn't change the simple fact that he is not producing. It's still that fact. So you're paying a guy a lot of money to it. And I agree with Zach, too. I agree. Because if at that time, if we didn't resign him and give him that money, people would have been so pissed. I would have been pissed. You guys would have been pissed. Everybody would have been pissed off. And how his career has kind of formed out, nobody saw it coming, like Zach just said. But, now you're on your tough situation, and people are thinking like, Justin, I know you brought it up, but I know you don't believe it. And because we talked about it before too. But people are bringing up, oh, but we paid Mauer so much money. Look what happened. It kind of blew up in our face. You can't think that way. You absolutely can't think that way.
No, you're right.
And I
don't think
agree.
that way.
Right. And I knew you didn't. I didn't mean to say that you did.
Don't put words in my mouth.
Don't put words in my mouth. But just frustrating because the people in this town let the Poets get away with it. And Justin, we talked about it a little before too. And I'll wrap this up quick. The thing with the Poets, it's like, why not? If you're the Poets, I wouldn't spend any money because, hey, nobody's holding me accountable. Hey, I'd get away with it. I wouldn't spend my money.
I made this comment last year to you guys when I was at school. I was like, I'm not buying any more Twins gear until I see an actual sign of them trying to do better things. And I kind of said it as a joke, but I really haven't purchased anything Twins related outside of that Nishioka jersey that was given to me, which is magic, by the way. But all right, so baseball is a game of trends, and so Mauer and the injury and I feel healthy thing, I think is just him trying to convince himself that there was a problem and that it wasn't him. Because the trends don't lie. In 2008, the biggest thing for Joe Mauer was always that he did not strike out and he got on base. In 2008, he had 85 RBIs, 84 walks, and 50 strikeouts. Now let's take that up to last year, where he doesn't have the excuse of not practicing to be first baseman because he's first baseman the year before too, but he had 66 RBIs, 67 walks, and 112 Ks. And you can look at all the stats, and they continuously get worse every year from 2008 to 2015. It's just the way it's gone. It's a trend. It shows me that he's not the player that was there in 2009 that had almost 100 RBIs with almost 30 home runs. This is who he is. He's the guy whose on-base percentage is in the 720s, not the upper eights. Not on base, OPS, sorry. And his batting average is in the mid 260s. That's what he is. He's not, I'm sorry, but I don't see it. And even if he was, this is the problem, is even if Joe was the guy who he was in 2008, in my mind, if he's not playing catcher, he's not worth that kind of money as a first baseman.
But that's the thing, though, is that's where it comes in, though, is nobody knew that he was going to have to move from behind the plate to first base, and that's the issue. Is as a fan, are you supposed to say, okay, so us sitting here as fans, and they say, well, shit, Joe Mauer's moving to first base. He's getting paid $23 million to do what he was doing behind the plate. Are we supposed to expect the poll ads to go say, well, we know we were going to give you this money for playing behind the plate, but we can't do that anymore because you're moving to first?
It was their decision, though. It was on them. It wasn't Joe that decided to go to first base.
I think it was a little bit of a mutual thing. He was told that if you want to continue playing baseball, you have to move from behind the plate.
Well, when he starts playing baseball again, I'll agree that he was invested into that process. But from the looks of it, since he's gone there, he's played less games until last year. But even when he did play last year, he had the worst OPS of his career. He doesn't hit for power. He doesn't get RBIs. He's realistically, with this new team that we've put together, that I say we put together, but the Twins have put together, he doesn't fit anywhere in that lineup 1 through 5. So now you're going to pay your 7-hitter or 6-hitter $23 million a year. I just think that it's a mass problem with this organization of not being able to keep the players they should keep, and then they give this big contract to someone who had done it for 1 year. 1 year? And historically, those contracts don't work out anyways. I don't know. I think that you don't hear people talking about it. You hear it every now and then, but no one's bashing them for it. When people sign someone bad, they're getting people are riding the wild about Pominville and Vanek. Mauer is 10 times worse than either of those players for the money and for what he's producing.
The two things you could always rely on with Joe was his average and strikeouts, like you talked about. He doesn't strike out at all, and his average is always high. I have a really, really, really hard time thinking, snap my fingers, next year all of a sudden, wow, he's healthy, he's hitting 300 again. I have a very hard time that's going to happen. I have a hard time thinking that's ever going to happen again. Let's just be honest here. Let's face the facts. I mean, he's going to be I'm not trying to be Mr. Negative here, but I'd be surprised if he has another 300, 320 batting average type season with 50 strikeouts like 2008 or something. I don't see that happening. I really don't.
So what do you do then? As this team, you go in, again, part of the problem is one of the big money positions you could spend at right now would be first base, considering it's a power position. A lot of your RBIs get driven because of players who play that position. But unfortunately, Joe's there. So I think Joe Mauer and his contract are causing this to be a problem. And if Mauer was playing like he was when he was a catcher, we're probably not even talking about this right now.
Right.
Because they may be Mauer's going to be Mauer and he's going to hit for whatever. Maybe we might be frustrated he's not getting the home runs, but the problem is it's just such a weird spot. Because baseball's I think the contracts are guaranteed, so he gets it no matter what. I don't know. It's a weird scenario. I wouldn't want it. I wouldn't want that to be the person who has to make that decision on when he gets to play or when he doesn't get to play or anything like that.
So what does Joe Mauer have to do in 2016 to? I don't want to say earn his contract because I don't think there's not a lot of players in the league that are capable of doing up to $23 million worth of contract.
Sure.
There are a handful of players that can perform and you're worth the $23 million a year. What does Joe Mauer have to do, in your opinions, to maybe earn a little bit of that contract and make it seem like, okay, it's not such a waste of money?
Well, I think we talked about it too when we talked about the Twins a couple episodes ago. For me, it stays the same. I would love to just even have like a 280 batting average, and maybe cut his strikeouts down a bit because his strikeouts are high, and he gets into a lot of double plays too. I know, Zach, we always joked about it too. Like, watch, ground ball to second. We joke about it. Next pitch, ground ball to second. Like, it was comical. It was so predictable. So if he could, cut your strikeouts down, maybe get some more walks, but I would take a 280 average in a heartbeat. I think 285, maybe 290.
I don't know. I mean, for me, I look at other players who are making that same kind of money around him, and I kind of laughed when I was reading them because here's the names of them, and you're gonna laugh too because it's like a bunch of guys not really producing. It was like Mark Teixeira, Hanley Ramirez are the two that's surrounding him right now. And I kind of laughed at that. And then Justin Upton and Max Scherzer and Jose Reyes. And it's like I wouldn't pay. And Matt Kemp is another one up in that area. And Carl Crawford, a bunch of guys not actually worth any of that amount of money. So I don't know.
So see now,
I mean,
now let me.
I have to go to the next thing and be like, the only other player he could be compared to because of his position that he was in and the amount of money, the closest player would be like a Buster Posey. And if I'm the Twins and I'm getting that kind of production on a Mauer, fine. I'll take Buster Posey production. How about that? Where he's hitting for 315 and 20 home runs.
So now, do you think it's maybe a generational thing where, and I guess generational is probably a bad word to say, but you look at a lot of those guys that you just named, they were, big factors for their teams in the late 2000s. Now that we've kind of turned into 2000 in the teens in here, and now we're 2016 this year. I mean, you named a guy like Matt Kemp, Hanley Ramirez, Mark Teixeira, Justin Upton. I mean, you named a lot of guys there that performed well 2008, 2009, what have you. So do you think maybe it's just kind of they got paid then because of what they did? I know that contracts, it's kind of a what have you done for me lately thing, but I mean, I think that the whole coming off of an MVP season, you need to stop Joe Mauer from going to Boston because he was going to Boston if you didn't re-sign here. And he would have if he stayed healthy, he would have put up massive numbers there because he, in his career, I think he hit something like 380 or something like that, or it's something completely absurd at Fenway Park.
Here's the thing, is that I think I'm being misunderstood. I don't think the Twins should ever hand out contracts of that size. That's my point.
No, I agree.
I don't.
Yeah, too big.
I've never agreed with that. I don't think that's a good way of doing things. I think that's the history of big contracts for players like that does not go well. And it was a weird situation, tough situation, so you probably had to sign them. I get that's part of it. But my thing is, like, please just spend more money in general. Like, if you look at our roster right now, okay, so you go to Kansas City's roster, and they've got, like, Lorenzo Cain and Joaquim Soria, Ian Kennedy, Omar Infante, Wade Davis, Hosmer, all these guys, right? Edson Volquez. And they've got them all on very team-friendly deals between like $6 and $10 million a year. But we don't really have any contracts in that range. All of our contracts are usually above that or below that. Like we don't have a lot of like team-friendly deals. We have guys who we're paying too much, or we're just going cheap and buying whatever's available. It's kind of like, how did we end up with Casey Fiend and Eduardo Escobar or Eduardo Nunez and people like that? It's spend more money on average. I'm not saying I don't mean like, hey, Twins, with one signing of David Price, get your payroll up to $120, $130 million. It's please just invest in each position a little more.
Well, yeah, I 100% agree too. And the thing is, our bullpen, we talked about it too off air, Justin. Our bullpen is awful. And you didn't do anything to help this bullpen? Nothing? Literally nothing? What? How I can't even like fathom that. That's absolutely insane. And we talked about it a couple episodes ago how the price for these bullpen guys it's pretty high. Tough. It's
pay
tough.
it.
You're gonna have to pay it. And now we're going into another season with Casey Fiend and guys like that and Michael Tonkin. I mean, it's comic. It's sad and it's comical because it's going to be another terrible year for our bullpen, and we're going to have 7-5 leads, whatever, in the 8th inning and 7th inning, and all of a sudden we're fighting the bottom of the 9th to get the lead back. It's going to happen because our bullpen's that bad. And I agree, Justin. And the thing, too, with when I see people on Twitter like, oh, you're going to complain about the payroll, blah, blah, blah. You know, typical Twins fan, whatever. You don't know what you're talking about. You know, those baseball idiots. But people that reply on Twitter are saying, and this is where I come from, too, we're not saying you have to go out and spend, like, New York-type money. But you have to spend money to win. You have to. I mean, you got to sign – you got to spend money to keep your guys in town. You got to, you know, spend money that way. And you got to sign money to bring in guys to help in your team. We didn't do any – you know what? I know we got the young guys. You're relying way too much on the young guys.
I'll give you 2 points on that, though. Like, the thing is we're not saying go out and spend a ton of money, but I'm sick of watching, you know, when you're in the 8th inning and J.R. Graham is being thrown out there, or you're out there and Ryan O'Rourke is being thrown out there, don't get mad at me when they blow it and say it's how you build an organization. That's
save money. Don't lie about the payroll.
And another thing is the payroll stuff, you don't want to be an issue. But here's the thing, is it was different 5 years ago when payrolls were right around the same averages and only one team was really spending more than $150 million, right?
Sure.
I mean, look at 2011. Like, you go and look at 2011 payrolls. It's, you know, it's not absurd, crazy payrolls like we have now where, you know, Twins were actually spending more back in 2011 than they're spending now, which is sad in itself. But, you know, it took you didn't get to another $140 million or $137 million payroll until you're the top 4 team in Major League Baseball. Now, like $137 million payroll doesn't even put you in the top 10 anymore, or puts you right at like number 9, 10-ish, 11, and then 9, 10, 11, 12 are all right around 130.
Yeah.
So the point is that you're so far behind the 8 ball on it that it's bad. It's bad business. It's not how you run this team, and I think the fans are just sick and tired of it because.
Not enough fans are sick and tired of it, though.
No,
that's the problem. Not enough.
Not enough, Art. You're right. But it's just that you spend less now than you did 4 years ago, or in 2011.
Yeah,
but you think
ridiculous.
And then you sell us on hope. It's like, you know what? I don't doubt that you have a lot in your organization, but I also remember how excited we were all about other prospects, and they didn't pan out. So, you know, and if all these guys panned out, like you said they were going to be, Aaron Hicks would be an all-star center fielder, and Trevor May and what's-his-face, Alex Meyer would be, you know, 1-2 in the pitching rotation right now.
Yeah, 100% agree. And it's also how you're spending money, too, especially with the Nolasco contract. It's just awful. And that's another thing they'll point to, too. These people point to Nolasco and be like, see, we spend money. It's not what I'm talking about. Come on. That's a terrible deal. It's a stupid situation. If you look at Nolasco's he's always been around 500. You know what you're getting, kind of. Well, now he's worse than he was, but you know what you're paying for. You weren't paying for a guy that could be your number 2 or number 1. You're paying for a guy that was a back-end rotation kind of guy. We gave him way too much money for. That's just stupid investment right there. And I don't know. We're not talking about you have to sign like all these all-stars every offseason and stuff like that, but bringing guys to help supplement your team. And every now and then, I know we kind of talked about David Price a little bit and how it would be like, that's too much money to spend, and I agree. But why not every now and then? Like, what if you did go out and sign like a number 1 star? What if you have these prospects and Erwin Santana and Phillies that are like, you know, pretty solid in your starting rotation, but you don't have that true number 1 guy, like Barrios is still not there or whatever. And you have the money to go and sign like a number 1 guy in free agency, why not? Why not do it for once? You know, and then build a sweet rotation that we could have and win a lot of games, because your offense is, like we talked about, is good enough. It would have been nice to add like an extra bat in the bench or something, but if you could build that rotation and build that bullpen with that money, man, it would just make us so much better.
Well, there are still names out there, too, for as far as pitching goes. Tim Lincecum's still in the market. Okay, you don't know what you're going to get with him, but guys like Yovani Gallardo, Tim Hudson, Doug Fister, Kyle Loesch, Jeremy Guthrie, I mean, these are all guys, okay, a couple of those guys are obviously a little bit older, but there are still some names out there that you could possibly add. I mean, Tim Lincecum is a guy, I don't remember I think it was Tom from MySpace said something, if the Giants re-sign him, he'll pay his salary or something crazy like that. I was like, what the hell is that?
MySpace.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tom from MySpace his name hasn't been spoken in the public in how many years, and he comes out all of a sudden and says, yeah, I'll pay Tim Lincecum's salary if he re-signs with the Giants. Like, hey, Tom, how about you pay his salary if he comes here? Can you do that for us? Tom. Then he might. Then the Twins might get a starting pitcher here out of this. But I don't know. I mean, it's you hope that. Obviously, I think a lot of fans are hoping, and I think a lot of fans, and I don't think I'm one of them. But you mentioned the prospect thing and how people are just like, oh, you're hoping that the prospects pan out and this and that, and I think a lot of fans are hoping that these prospects pan out. A guy like Sano, I think a guy like Sano you can kind of see now is the real deal. But a guy like Byron Buxton, still kind of a question mark. You don't know exactly what you're going to get with him. People are calling Max Kepler a real deal. I saw somebody, I don't remember who it was. I always say that I don't remember who they are. I should start seeing who it is, but I think it was I can't remember. But somebody did an article talking about Adam Brett Walker, and kind of the prospect that nobody's talking about, but they should probably start talking about it because I think they said he's by far the best hitting prospect the Twins have as far as power goes. I mean, this is a guy that could make an impact on a pro roster. So I don't know. There's a lot of talent, but it's a question of will that talent pan out? And I think that, obviously that's the question that you're going to have, and you obviously hope that they do. But say they do pan out, then what happens? Then you're going to have to pay them. And will the Twins step up and say, we're going to do what we can to keep our guys here?
Yeah, that's a big question mark too. Is if these guys are going to turn out like we all hope they would be, or all projected they would be. And Zach, you talked about it too. You nailed it. Sano's going to be the real deal. We saw it last year. He's got the power. He's not a great fielder. He's not a great runner. But when you hit that well, who cares? Adam Brett Walker's a guy that hits a lot of dingers too in the minor league system. We talked about him a little bit, and we still got Eddie Rosario. We'll see how Buxton does. Rosario, I was really impressed with last year, and we got this young talent, and you build around that young talent for sure. That should be your focal point. But I'm not saying you should build your team around free agency, but you still need a couple of guys to supplement your team to help, push this team further along. Because we're 500 last year, second place. Realistic, we should be kind of contending for a division championship this year. I mean, if you think about it, we didn't lose much, we didn't gain much. In fact, we're going to get Santana for a full year. Irvin Santana, who gave us some pretty decent starts this year. I'm not going to complain. And it's the whole Phil Hughes even year type thing where he bounces back. He has that bad year, has a good year, bad year, good year. So we'll see.
I think the scariest thing with that though is that every other team in this division got better.
Exactly.
Except, okay, you could argue the Cleveland Indians, whatever, but they still have a lot of great pitching on their team now.
Yeah.
But there are some teams that got a lot. I think in all honesty, the teams that got better, I think Detroit, Chicago, both got better than what the Twins did. And,
100%.
And it's like, does that push them up above where the Twins were last year? Maybe. I mean, obviously you don't know what kind of Upton you're going to get going to Detroit, but it's like those are two teams in the division that built a lot, and they've put a lot of money out on the field, and they're going to go try and win some ball games next year. Kansas City, you don't know what you're going to get. Justin keeps blowing his mic for some reason. I don't know what the hell he's doing. Every couple of seconds I hear it, I'm like, dude, what the hell is that noise? Oh my God. But no, I don't know. I mean, I'm hopeful. You're hopeful that some of these guys pan out. What are you going to get from the Korean guy they get? Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
Oh God, the Twins. No, who knows? I mean, with the money that Detroit spent this year, like you said, every team got better. Detroit just signed Upton, obviously. So it just kind of seems like maybe a third place type finish. You got to think the Royals will finish first again with how well they played. Royals, Tigers, maybe Twins third. Who knows? I mean, the Indians surpass us. Maybe we go fourth. White Sox.
Say that.
It could either be like another second place finish, third place finish, or we could be dead last. It's so hard to tell.
But this is also a team that could sneak away and probably win the division, like off of some fluky stuff. this team will come away with a division. You know,
Yeah, we
it's
said
just
that last week too, that it wouldn't surprise us if they finished on top or on bottom.
it's going to be a
Right.
fun team to watch, and it's going to be. And I think the Central as a division is going to be a lot closer. I think that Kansas City might tone it down a little bit, but a lot of the teams that are below them got a lot better as well. I mean, the Twins got better too. It's
Yeah.
not. I mean, the Twins are going to be better because you're going to get Santana for the full year, and you're going to get guys back who are you're going to get a full season of Sano, probably going to get a full season of Buxton. I know he didn't play as well last year as a lot of people wanted him to, but you're going to get a full season of Byron Buxton. So I mean, the Twins got better. I think every team in the Central got better, and it'll be it should be a fun race to the finish. I think for the Twins.
It's gonna be a fun season. We get to see guys, kind of build up again. We get to see Sano. We get to see how Buxton has the full year starting off, starting with a team in spring training and making his way through the major leagues. He doesn't have to start off in AAA or AA again. Eddie Rosario, like I said, I was really impressed with him last year. It's gonna be kind of exciting to see how he does this year, the full season. We'll see with guys like maybe they'll deal with Kenny Vargas down the line again, or maybe they'll deal with like Adam Brett Walker down the line. Who knows? But we got some good young players. Jose Barrios. We'll see if he comes up halfway through the year or something like that. And you got some good young pieces on this team that do get you excited about the future, especially how you finished last year.
And the biggest number to circle: 22 days until pitchers and catchers report. From now, it's we're catching up on there. That'll put a wrap on today's show here. Lots of good Twins talk, lots of good Wild talk. I guess if you want to call the Wild talk good talk. I guess it's a lot of bashing both teams today,
Good
but
venting.
It's been a lot of negativity.
a couple of near
Well,
F
look at the
bombs
name of the
dropped.
damn program.
Couple of near F bombs dropped today, but we'll just let that slide and maybe edit it out. Edit out in the future. Fuck.
I didn't say the S word.
So once again, thanks for hanging out today.
Yeah,
This has been the land of 10,000 losses. Fittingly, the land of 10,000 losses here. Justin LeBounty, Travis Hartman, I'm Zach Wright. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll bring the next episode to you a little bit later on this week, hopefully with some good news on the Minnesota sports front. Once again, though, that'll do it here for today, January 27th, 2016. Stay tuned for more episodes. Head on out to the Spreaker site if you're listening to, and leave us a follow and leave us a like on the website. Let us know what you want to hear. You can also head out to our Facebook page as well. Leave us all kinds of feedback that way as well. Helps the show grow and helps us figure out what we want to do in the future. So once again, thanks for hanging out today, and we'll see you next time.